Morning, everyone. Just wanted to jump on. No particular news. Just first off, no big announcements or anything. So don't panic. I'll have to repeat that in a few seconds so that other people joining now will understand that. No big announcement. So I just wanted to sort of cover where we stand. There's been a couple of things. Morning, Bundix. You're first to say good morning. There's been a couple of things just coming up, and I just want to make sure that people understand what happened yesterday and what's going to happen over the next few days. There may be some confusion there. Morning all. Got some nice good mornings there. Okay, so yesterday we had a hearing. And I live tweeted that, and Akeki, I should just say there is no big news here. No, I didn't jump on this morning to make some big announcement or anything like that. So, happy Chinese New Year! Yeah, awesome. So yeah, just so you know. So I'm going to take a few questions. I'm going to explain, a few things. Mo, which Morrison? So Curtis tweets multiple times a day. Which tweet were you referring to when you just said that? Perhaps you could just ask me again, Mo, and make it clear which one you're talking about. So basically, we have a sort of a prioritization of events that are going on, right? Who is most in trouble right now? Let's prioritize and focus on those people. Who's going to be most in trouble next? Let's think about what we can do for those people, etc. And let's make sure everyone understands where things lie on those points. So the most immediate pressing issue that the lawyers are trying to sort out at the moment was the main topic of conversation yesterday, which is people who've got visas issued from DV 2020, and those issues are, thanks, Mo. I saw that one. I'll speak about that in a moment. So people who've got visas issued and they're going to expire shortly, right? So I was frustrated yesterday, and I've sort of thought about this overnight, and I'm still frustrated. I have to say, it's still kind of pissed off. I had my live session yesterday, and I checked out my tweets. And number one, I had a sarcastic comment from Rafael Arena, trying to be smart. Come on, asking me if I've got some idea about the law that could be used by the court to apply a blanket NIE. Firstly, the suggestion for the blanket NIE was made by Curtis Morrison and Rafael Arena, and then subsequently, I believe, the AILA lawyers as well. If they don't know how to get that applied, Rafael Arena and no one else should be asking me. They should know, right? They're being well paid. They're smart people. They should know the laws. I fully understand that the original suggestion was a request to the government to stipulate that the blanket NIE should be applied. I don't know, and I didn't suggest that the court should order that. I think what should have happened, and this is what's frustrating me, is that when Biden didn't remove the PP 10014 a week ago on the 2nd, 9 days ago now, the lawyers should have come up with some sort of negotiated settlement with the government. They sent a notice very quickly to Seaborg and to Meta, saying, the government is not removed PP 10014. That's good. But what happened to the week in between, the 2nd and the 9th, and the 9th being when the lawyers asked for the blanket NIE? What happened to that week? We can't afford to waste a week, right? I also thought that the call itself was badly managed, badly handled. There were multiple lawyers talking, and we've done far better in the past when the lawyers between them have agreed, that only one or two of them would talk. For example, Chuck Cook has represented the case extremely well in the past. And I thought the lawyers sort of jumping on top of each other and coming up with ideas just wasn't good. I think there was too much bickering going on with, the Judge Mehta basically asking, what have you done to come up with some sort of negotiated settlement? That didn't happen. And then instead of, and certainly it appears to me, I think the truth of the matter is the government lawyers have not been cooperating that well for whatever reason. We don't know why, right? But if they're not cooperating, the lawyers don't need to be saying, believe me, we've spoken to them a lot of times. They should be able to document it and say, well, we've had 14 conversations and we've sent them, 23 emails and we've done this and this and this. Judge, there's our proof that we've had those conversations. Let the government argue, if they want to, that they haven't been contacted enough, but show the proof that you've contacted them, right? And then if you have the idea of the blanket NIE 2 days ago, why didn't you have that idea a week ago? So, frustrated with all of those things. I thought also Mehta feels under pressure. He doesn't want this to go badly for people, and certainly our side don't want this to go badly for people. So there is pressure. So Mehta is under pressure. So in the middle of him being under pressure, to then offer a life raft of protecting people's rights until the final case hearing. I understand the life raft might be useful later, but why would you take the pressure out? Why would you do that? And was that a plan? Was that something that all the lawyers had agreed? I don't know. It just didn't feel like it. It felt like it was plucked out of the air, and then frankly, it deflated, depressurized a pressured situation when the pressure was useful. Right. So I just felt that the thing was sort of, badly handled. But where do we stand now? So AILA have sent an email to people that have filled out their form. I think it's gone out to those people. And they've said two things. This is quite interesting. Number one, they've said anyone who got a DV 2020 visa issued with less than 6 months validity, right? So if you only got, for whatever reason, 5.5 months, 5 months validity, then AILA are suggesting that you contact, let me just check that. I think it's that you contact the embassy. Who do they say to contact? I'll get that in a moment. I'm trying to see exactly who they should ask, right? But the point is, regulations provide blah 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 for members of the Gomez class. Opportunity, yeah. If you're okay, so they've sent this email out to people who did fill out the form and who did not fill out the form. So both types of people would have got that. And basically, if you have less than 6 months, you should be contacting the embassy to ask for the extension up to 6 months, right? If you have received a visa with 6 months validity, then you're going to need to wait and see what the Gomez lawyers can argue. And they're filing a motion, as we heard yesterday. They're going to file a motion tomorrow, where they're going to ask for some sort of remedy for that. And this is my other area of frustration, right? What I don't want to happen, what I hope won't happen, is that they will ask for something that the government will object or argue with, right? So it would be far better if what they ask for tomorrow, what they file in their motion tomorrow, is previously agreed or has some sort of basis of common ground that the government can agree, so that there isn't going to be too much of an argument in front of the judge on the 18th. Actually, the argument will come in written form. The government will have a chance to respond to the motion prior to the 18th, right? There's not very much time, but prior to the 18th. Why is that important? Well, if you go before a judge and there are two parties arguing, you need to, you have to ask him to sort of settle that and decide, right? He might not do that immediately. And B, if the motion is something that the government is saying they don't have the lawful ability to do, for example, then and you've got to describe the law that covers that. And this is back to Rafael Arena's point, describing the law that would require or that would enable the judge to order, for example, a blanket NIE, right? And so then you've got to support that with law, and and the judge will then consider that law and see if he agrees, and and that process will take days. Meaning, if you go before the judge and you don't have an agreement already made, it's going to cost us more time. We're not going to get an answer on the 18th, right? That's basically the issue here. So think of all those people whose visas are already starting to expire. Now, it may be some of those people that have got February expiry dates might be able to get an extension, as the AILA email has suggested. So maybe that's a way to buy a little bit more time, and that's probably what we need, just a little bit more time. But nevertheless, we're somewhat risky here. I think this perspective, by the way, from the AILA lawyers about the 6 months is that they probably don't quite understand why some people have got visas that are already expiring in February. That means that those visas were based on medicals taken in August, prior to the September 4th issuances, I guess. Be interested to hear some of the stories about why people have got February dates. They should really be March dates, in a sense. So anyway, so that's what's going on there. So I think it's critical that somehow or other there's some sort of negotiation behind the scenes that results in an agreement with the government lawyers and our side. And Charles Acker has said they've been trying, right? That the plaintiffs' counsel have been diligent, he said, in trying to get some sort of agreement. I'm sure that's true. I'm absolutely certain that's true. Chuck Cook is not a liar. And so I believe that. However, there's got to be, Meta, frankly, was frustrated with all of them yesterday. He was pissed off with everyone. And I don't blame him, because on the 29th, I think it was, or the 28th, the hearing that was before February 2nd, when the government actually didn't remove the ban, Meta had been clear that he wanted the parties, plaintiff counsel and the other side, to come up with some sort of agreement. And once February 2nd was reached and there was nothing from the government, it would have been possible to reach out and say, okay, the judge is going to ask us what have we agreed, what are we going to say. Neither side, frankly, should go in front of the judge not having done what the judge has asked them to do. So he's frustrated, right? He's frustrated with all of them, and all he heard was bickering about, yeah, we've been trying to contact them, and that they haven't been responsive, blah blah blah. He didn't want to hear it, and so when they then put pressure on him, he said, "I'm doing my best, but you guys aren't helping me." That's what Meta said, basically, right? So, yeah. So that's where. That's where we stand, I think, for the DV 2020 folks with visas issued. So question here, where is Judge Seaborg? We need him. You're absolutely right. We need Seaborg to make some sort of order. That would be the other way out of this. It would be nice if Biden would get off his his throne or whatever, and direct someone to pull their finger out, Mayorkas or someone, Blinken, whoever needs to make this sort of decision, to do what they can do to remove the ban. So we need Seaborg, we need Biden, we need Mayorkas. They all need to just get on with this. Now, we are in the situation we negotiated ourselves into. This is what we caused, right? This is the situation we knew we were going to be in. So again, we should have some some idea of how to deal with it. The other thing I posted yesterday, I think that it confused people, was I posted a link to a previous decision which was about blanket NIEs. And I just want to explain why I posted that and what blanket NIEs means, right? So a couple of days ago, Morrison and Urena sent an email saying, let's think about blanket NIEs to the government. Blanket meaning give everybody this NIE, right? Just don't even force them to apply for it. So an NIE you would normally have to ask for during an interview. You'd have to show evidence of why you would get an NIE, a national interest exception, a waiver because of it being in the national interest of the USA. So it would be perfectly possible, absolutely possible for the government to turn around at this point and say, okay, there's 6,000 people, we issued them visas, they should be barred by the ban, but we believe the ban's going to be gone within, at the end of March or whatever. Let's just do the right thing by these people. Let's give them a national interest exception. It's in the national interest to allow those people in. They could do it like that, right? And they could give a blanket NIE, meaning they're just going to, if you're in this position, if you were issued a visa in September or whatever, or you had a visa before, all of those people in DV 2020 that have been to at least that point, they could be treated as an exception, not removing 10014, but just treating them as an exception, right? So, it's possible. Now, is it possible for the judge to order that? I don't know, but and I don't know what law would support that, which is Arena's point to me. But frankly, that's not the right way forward anyway. The right way forward is to negotiate that and get that done with the government's agreement. So, so let's do that. This is an interesting question. Why is Biden forcing African countries to legalize gay rights? I haven't seen that, but I was interested in that. That's a big ask for some African countries because some of them like to pretend that there are no gay people in the world or in their countries or some bullshit. I mean, there are, and those people, need to have rights. Frankly, nobody should have to ask those governments to give humans human rights. But Biden now wields power on behalf of the American government, right? So if you want to play ball with America and you're a government running some country, then yeah, there's some things you're going to have to put right in your country. You need to play by certain human rules, right? So he's in a position to ask people to do things. We send out a lot of financial aid every year, including to most, many of these countries. And if there is a country there that is not treating people humanely, correctly, legitimately, including gay people, then yeah, we should be using our influence to say, put that right, or we're not going to continue to, look after you, help you, support you, right? So I hadn't heard that he's doing that or forcing, as you put it, but that's the right thing. And if you personally have animus against gay people, well, you're in the wrong, right? And frankly, it's 2021, time to wake the F up, right? Because there are gay people in this world and they're just as legitimate as you or I, right? Just like there are Muslims, just like there are Christians, just like there are Jews, everybody has got the right to live as they want to live, believe who they want to believe in terms of religion, love who they want to love in terms of love. So screw this idea that somehow, being gay is some sort of mistake or illegal behavior or anything else like that. It's 2021. Come on, time to grow up. And if your country is behaving like that, then you need to become an advocate on behalf of gay people, whether you're gay or not. I'm not gay, but if I were, I would want all my rights, and so should you. And you should support me in asking for that, right? Celestine, looking at this, 2021 have less than 6 months for interviews since one is scheduled. Yeah, so this is the next problem. So I started off the call, this video, by saying we need to look at who's immediately in danger and who's next in danger, right? DV 2020 folks who've had their visas issued need help right now, like right now. And so DV 2021 is rapidly running out of time. DV 2020 folks, by the way, without visas issued, have to wait for the Gomez case, which will have a final hearing in about a month's time, just over a month, right? And so we hope to have a decision in that case at the end of March, right? For DV 2021, time is rapidly slipping away from us. In the Seaborg decision, the Enunciato case, the lawyers absolutely will be asking for the ability to issue all 55,000 visas. There is no way that can happen in the remaining time that we have. So they're going to have to ask for, whether they get it or not, I don't know, but they're going to have to ask for some sort of ability to have additional time. Right. One of the problems that we've got is that the embassies are closed right now. That's the other problem. It's not just about the PP 10014, is that embassies are closed. So embassies need to be encouraged or told or do whatever to actually start finding ways to interview people. And they need to treat DV cases as a priority, because DV cases, unlike a lot of immigrant cases, run out of time. So they either do what they can to get the majority of people issued by September 30th, or we'll have to ask Seaborg to set aside some visas to be issued later. That's the other solution. He may not agree that. We may have to face facts that this year, 2021, is going to be badly impacted. Pandemics have consequences. People die, and also people don't get visas. That's what happens in a pandemic, apparently. That's consequences. But your lawyers are fighting for you. And whilst I'm pissed off with them all at the moment, I respect them. I admire them. I'm critical. I will be critical of them, and I'll continue to be critical of them. Thank you very much for anyone that's going to ask. Because that's the right way to get things pushed ahead, right? That's how you do things. Okay, so Britt Curtis tweeted that orders are sent about PP 10014. So what now? Yeah, no, I don't. I don't know exactly which one you're referring to, which tweet you're referring to there, but I think I explained there. Tim, where did you get the nonsense about Biden forcing Africa? Yeah, as I say, I question the word forcing as well. I don't think he can force a country, but he can certainly encourage it, and he can, and in my opinion, he should. So there you go. Britt, any chance for AF 79,000 the way things are going? Clearly, Morris, that number is at risk, right? We don't know what's going to happen with the visa bulletin numbers. It may be that once we get interviews started, that they only move in a normal way, in which case they'll never get to case number of 79,000, right? They won't get to the very highest case numbers like that. They might, on the other hand, they could, and I don't personally think this is likely, but people have asked me, is it possible? And so I'll say, yes, it is possible that they could put a region or multiple regions current, and just have some sort of Wild West situation. It's possible. They could, it would be an abandonment of their duty to organize things correctly, and also to adjudicate cases and prioritize cases in a number order. But it's technically it's possible. I just don't think it will happen. Guys, what topic is it? It's just an update. Z, just an update. You have a really good feeling about this all. I agree with you. I feel positive about it in general. I'm nervous about DV 2021 because I can't see the future. But I think for DV 2020 folks, there will be, there should be something. There should be something organized, Talking about Cameroon, how about DV 2021 when interviews going to resume? Yeah, we don't know when the interviews are going to resume. And even if I said something today about a particular embassy, such as Cameroon or any other country, I could say something today about that embassy, and in a week's time, they might have a completely different situation due to COVID, right? So these things are very, 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 changeable, right? Changeable day to day. Mohammed's going to call me Captain DV America. Thank you for that. Nafor, I thought Biden would be better than Trump in regards to immigration policy, but right now I don't think there's a difference. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, Infor. Yeah, there's, it's been now, he's been in power for 3 weeks and a day. You can't change the world in 3 weeks and a day. But it's enough time, I think, to start setting a different tone in the government, and trying to deal with some of these issues. He's done a good job of establishing a framework, an organization, etc. He's done good with that, and that's how he wants to operate. But yes, it is time that somebody within the government is now speaking to people like the lawyers that we're arguing with in our case, to modify their behavior, to tell them to find solutions, to respond to the plaintiff's requests. Give us a response. I mean, Curtis has sent a tweet this morning saying that he's heard again that from Benton York that they have sent the request about the NIE, the blanket NIE. They've sent that to all the plaintiffs, meaning the decision makers. Joe Biden. It's not Joe Biden, but Joe Biden's administration. Things are moving, but there should be a bit more positivity, a bit more of a sort of cooperative spirit. So I do agree with you. I think there needs to be, I've always said I wanted Trump gone. There's no doubt about that. I wanted Trump gone. Frankly, anybody with a heartbeat and half a brain would be better than Trump. But I'll hold Biden's, actions accountable as well. And the lawyers will. They've got no problem suing Biden. The lawyers are lawyers. They want to sue people, right? If Biden does bad, they'll sue him. My mother-in-law, who's supposed to host me, gave up the ghost last week. Gave up the ghost. It's heartbreaking. Do you mean died? I'm sorry if that's if you lost your mother-in-law. I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that. It's heartbreaking. I don't know if I should maintain her address or change it. Well, you'll need to make your own decision about that to see, who's still living at the house, whether you can use that address or not. But right now, your thoughts, if I understand you correctly, your thoughts should be with your family and your spouse. It's tough. It's tough losing a mother. I can tell you that. What about an Enunciato case? Yeah, so we're waiting for Judge Siebel. There's no further hearing scheduled. There's no need for a further hearing. We're just waiting for that decision. Last week, by the way, I can tell you where some of the time went last week after the second was with that farcical thing of trying to consolidate cases that were later then not consolidated. That absorbed some time and focus and energy, and that energy would have been better spent elsewhere. So there you go. So what is an NIE? I think I've answered that. It's just a mechanism by which, and the bans each refer to this, generally speaking, the bans allow for this, where the government can have an exception. The E in NIE is exception, right? National interest exception or exemption. The government can sort of say it's in our best interest, the national interest, the government's interest, or a citizen, and they would do this normally in a family case, for example, or an employment case. But they could say, for example, this doctor here is needed in America to work on COVID research or COVID vaccinations or whatever. And so it's in national interest, it's in the America's, the government's interest, everybody's interest to get that guy over here, right? That's an example of an exception. Same thing for a US citizen sponsoring family. So we're just asking them to apply that mechanism in a blanket way without having to apply for it case by case, in a blanket way, just sort of pre-approve that for all of the people currently issued. I thought it was a good idea. And as I say, my only frustration is why didn't they answer that earlier? Is there any chance for me? This is the classic sort of question that is just impossible to answer. I don't know what you mean. So you have to give me more information than that to get a sensible answer. Any chance due to embassies being closed, they open up AOS no matter what your number is? AOS, right. So no. Okay, so you're saying AOS. If you're saying embassies and then AOS. So AOS is adjustment of status. That's for people in the USA. People in the USA doing adjustment of status on DV lottery need for their numbers to be current anyway, right? So like the gentleman earlier who asked about AF 79,000, there's no opportunity for someone at that number to come to America and adjust status, partly because of the number, because you can't file adjustment of status paperwork until your case is announced as being current in the VB. So no. I was also asked the other day, by the way, someone on an Enunciato plaintiff, I think it was, and there's also Kennedy plaintiffs, or not Kennedy plaintiffs, sorry, a Jacob plaintiff, I think, asked me the same thing. Being a plaintiff, does that mean that your number isn't important? No, it doesn't mean that. You were told that when you were signing up, I'm sure, that if you're not current, you can't have any sort of preferential treatment because you're not current. So you're not going to be treated any differently to someone else that's not current. So there you go. Right. Does the NIA apply for Latin American DB 2020 holders? Again, so it doesn't matter where you're from. We're not arguing for a country or for a region. This is everything. They're asking for everybody, but it's a request. It's not been agreed yet. So and this is the subtext thing about he threatens sanctions on countries that won't normalize issues concerning LGBTQ. Yeah, absolutely. That's how you do it, right? That's not forcing them. That's giving them a choice, right? So that's like saying, look, if you don't play ball with us, these are the rules that we play by. And let's say I run a company and I do business with other companies and I find out some other company behaves in a disgusting way. I've got the perfect right to say, well, I'm not going to do business with that company, right? In the same way, a country, certainly a powerful one like America, can say, I'm not going to do business with you, Mr. Country Leader, until you're being decent to the people in your country, right? So if you're going around, being horrible based on either religious grounds or sexual preference grounds, then expect some trouble, and that's the only way you can make progress, because some countries will never get it otherwise. And if countries are being run according to religious practice, and that religious practice says that gay people should be thrown off the top of buildings, well, screw that country, right? And screw the government that actually applies those rules. That's not cool, and we shouldn't be enabling that in countries that do that. And you might say, well, it's none of our business. Well, fine, then we don't have to deal with that country. That's it, right? Then that's what sanctions mean. That's how you encourage countries to behave like grown-ups, right? Can we apply for a tourist visa while having a DV? You can. Non-immigrant visas will be slightly affected by the fact that you've applied for an immigrant visa. When you filled out your DS-260, that's an application for an immigrant visa. And so you have declared immigrant intent, and that can make your visa application a little bit more difficult. But there's no actual sort of complete block in you applying. You're still allowed to apply, and you have to demonstrate that you're going to follow the rules, which means that you would return home after your when your non-immigrant visa expires. You cannot get a non-immigrant visa and say, yeah, I want that visa so I can go to America and adjust status. They will deny you on the spot, and that would be a problem. You just have to continue playing. Yeah, absolutely. Surprise live. Yep. There you go. Daria believes in LGBTQ rights also. People are actually dying. They're not just dying, they're being thrown off the top of buildings and stuff. Yes, Daria, you're absolutely right. is about answering questions. Okay. Sweshi, greetings from Kenya, Obama land. I'm all ears. And you know, that's great. I love that. I love that Sweshi calls this Obama land. This is awesome. I you know, a lot of people in America had a tough time with understanding that Kenya was Obama's you know, origin, or you know, his father's origin, and I just love that. You know, I thought it was awesome. Is it possible to extend the visas that expire on Mars? I think by Mars you mean March. Yeah, so we don't know at the moment. That's an issue. We don't know if it's possible to extend the visas that expire, and that's kind of the difficulty, which is one of the reasons Ayla is saying if you've been given a visa with less than 6 months original duration, then you should be applying for the maximum duration you can, the 6 months, right? So do that, just to sort of just to buy yourself some extra time. Say hi to your cat boy. I honestly, that cat video, I just couldn't keep a straight face yesterday. It was making me giggle all the time. Although I did wonder yesterday if the cat might have done a better job yesterday on the call. When are you going to change your tactic and tell us to send documents without them asking? I have all the documents ready and waiting for you for your charge signal. So, Akaki, it's a great question. I was thinking I was going to do it about now, but the problem that I'm seeing is that, and I think I explained the other day, I'm very nervous of telling people to send the documents and them getting deleted by KCC because they just, you know, they don't have the right levels of staffing, and then when they do have staffing, they're just going to delete documents. You know, it just worries me. But we are getting to the point where, you know, you can send it. If there was a way of checking that they have your documents and how far processed are the documents, if there was a way of getting some sort of feedback from KCC, I would be far less nervous about that, because you could send your documents and then you could call them a week later, or you could email them a week later, and they could say, yeah, don't worry, we got your documents, they're all complete, we're just going through them now, you know. But we don't get sensible feedback like that, so you just don't know. So you can waste a long time, and then eventually they'll say something like, well, we never got your documents. And, you know, they probably did get your documents, but someone just pressed the delete button, right? And I hope that that's not true, that they've done that. But there certainly were a lot of people that just, you know, tried to apply. Some of the DV 2020 folks will tell you they're in category 5, and you know, there will be stories from people who said I followed all the instructions to the letter. I sent all the documents. I was careful. I sent them 3 times. I sent them, you know, and still months later, KCC say they don't have my documents. So I'm just worried about that sort of happening again. So hang on for another week or so, Akaki. Let's just see if something happens with PP 10014, and if it does, then there should be a subsequent increase in activity at KCC that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable. And, you know, they would hopefully be asking people for documents. Should we expect a decision? We should hope for a decision in the Annunziato case this week. The lawyers last week expected the decision last week, but, you know, they're waiting minute by minute. I mean, you know, we hope to get that very, very soon. I hope it will be this week. My wife and I were denied in 2017. We kept playing the lottery. Fortunately for us, we were winners of 2021. That's great. You won twice. That's awesome. AF 23,000. So your case number is not a bad case number, but we need interviews to start. And without interviews starting, I can't tell you what your chances are. So the case number itself is very good. Just confirmed that our proposed stipulations, including one last night that Joe Biden end 10014 because it's based on xenophobic myth, has been forwarded to all defendants, including President. Right. Okay. Thank you, Satam, for confirming about Curtis Morrison's tweet. Yeah. I mean, you know, I saw the note back from Benton York saying yes, they've got that that confirmation that they've sent that suggestion on. But I'm sure conversations are happening in the background, like as Charles Cook said. I just want to see a little bit more action with it, and I'm sure all of you do too. Would you please throw more light about working experience apart from recommendation letters and what other papers are needed? Okay, so remember, you only have to prove work experience if you've not got the educational standard needed, right? The normal, easiest way of qualifying for the lottery is through education. And you need to be at a certain level of education, which is approximately the same level as an American kid gets at 18 years old when they start college, which is university, right? So it's the point at which you're ready to start a bachelor's degree course. But you haven't started the bachelor's degree course necessarily. You don't have to have a bachelor's degree. You just need to be ready to start that course, right? And that means different things in different countries, but that's what it means in America. Okay, so then if you can't meet that, then you need to prove your work experience, and you do that by showing a career progression to a standard where the job you've performed for at least 2 years out of the last 5 years is at a certain level, a managerial level typically. And you go on the ONET database and you confirm that the job role you're doing is of a certain standard. I have an article on my blog that explains how you do that, how you check the ONET database to confirm that the job you're doing is at the right level. And then you just need to provide background information that proves you're doing that job. So you can prove your pay slips. You can show HR letters from the HR department, for example, showing promotions that you've had. You can show the type of job duties that you do. Could be reference letters, could be your curriculum vitae, your CV, or your resume. There's various ways that you can do that. How you do it exactly is something you need to decide, right? How do you prove to a stranger that you've been doing this job? So there's not a specific set of documentation that you would use in every case, right? But as I said at the beginning, make sure that you're only doing that if you don't meet the educational standard, which is possible, right? You may not have had a formal education, but you may have actually sort of worked your way up and be doing a high level position, and that would be enough. You cannot qualify by just any old working experience. Let's say you've been a seamstress for 5 years. That's not enough. That's not a high enough level job. So it's not just that you've got work experience, it's that you've got work experience within the right level of job. Like I said, on my blog, I've got an article that covers that in detail. Just go to my FAQ, right? Update, government attorney, just confirm there are proposed solutions. Yep, thank you. Yep, thank you, Satyam. Yeah, I see you're updating that. Thank you very much. Amanda Dumani, my passport expires July 21. Can't get a new one since passport office in my country is closed. I'm case number 20,000. What will happen if I go for an interview in June and passport expires July? That would be okay. They would stamp your visa, and you're going to have 6 months, right? So hopefully within that time you can get a new passport, and then you simply travel with the visa that they've stamped into your passport plus the new passport, right? So you've got your expired passport and your new passport, and in the expired passport is the valid visa. That's all you do. It's not hard. Go live with a cat filter. I'm not kidding. I looked to see if I could do that on StreamYard that I use. I can't do it with this particular software, sadly. But I look a little bit like a cat, don't I? Chubby-faced cat. What do you think about embassies in countries that only have 30 to 40 winners? Will it go faster? I get this question a lot. There's an assumption that having a few winners in a country makes it easier for you, and it's not really the case unless you're all current, right? Because the number progression is based on the region, not your country. So it may be a little bit easier in certain circumstances, but generally speaking, no, it doesn't give an advantage. What does it mean if your case number is At MVC, it means you're right at the beginning. Every case, literally every case in DV 2021 is at MVC. It simply means you haven't been sent to the embassy yet. Nothing more than that. When will it be in the way? Any good news? Yeah, I don't know what that means. When will KCC resume work? I don't know. They are responding oddly. They're responding to a few emails, not many, but a few. They have some staffing level there, but not complete. So I don't know whether they're going to get back to full capacity. My guess is they're going to need to be told to do that. Still haven't submitted the DS. I'm afraid the restrictions won't be lifted in time. My case is EU 1000. Is that 1,300? That's a very low case number. It won't be too late to submit after March. You can, if you're nervous about submitting a DS-260 because of immigrant intent, then you can continue to hold back on that for the time being. And once you do submit it and then submit your documents, you'll get processed and scheduled, as soon as your DS-260 and your documents are processed, right? I lived in another country. If things go well and my visa gets issued, I'm planning to go back to my country and see my family, then travel to the USA from my country. Will that cause any problems? No, you travel into America from wherever the heck you like. Doesn't make any difference where you travel from, as long as you don't go through one of the 14-day restricted countries like the Schengen area, right? Can you give some ideas privately to lawyers how they can do something for us with visas issued? I've spoken to them individually, or a couple of them. They're smart people. They can figure it out. They know the issues. I'm sure I'm probably pissing them all off at the moment with my comments. I think Raphael, do you guys know Don Quixote tilting at windmills? I think Raphael Urena was doing that with me yesterday, and frankly, he should have been paying attention to other things. And I'm, to an extent, I'm probably doing the same thing with telling them how to do their jobs. So they know how to do their jobs. I'm just frustrated they didn't do it the way I would have wanted. But they're smart people, and I'm sure behind the scenes they're doing the best they can. Can we get PI from the judge while these reviewing things are going on? Yeah. We can. There's nothing, just because there's lots of things going on doesn't mean that we won't get a PI, for example, from the Annunziato case. It no longer feels like a great nation. America? Actually, on the contrary, I think it feels like it's a nation returning to common sense, and therefore getting better again. We've not been well for 4 years. We've been a sick country. But I'm hopeful for the future. I think the economy could do well. Lots of things could go well. COVID crisis has knocked us for six, no doubt about it. But it was particularly bad because we had a Muppet in the White House. It should have been handled so much better. What should we expect? Admittance to entry, visa reissuance, visa preserve, or nothing at all? I mean, I don't know, take your pick. But if I were you, I would be hopeful that you're going to get something that's useful. The best thing would be an immediate agreement that you could enter. And then there's various impacts of the other things that you're suggesting. For example, visa reissuance. If that's all we can get, fine, but that will cost people money. And for some people, the money is already going to be extreme, right? They've already paid twice. Some people. In some cases they've paid for 2 lots of medicals, maybe interview one time. There's various stories, but people don't want to keep on paying, and in some cases they can't afford to. Okay. Yeah, saw that. I did see that. We've discussed that. Maria saying, yep, hopeful for DV 2021. Synthesia, pure speculation. If judge rules in our favor, I have a feeling the judge will request updates by percentage of plaintiffs completed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There are a lot of people, though, Synthesia. 130,000 people selected, 55,000 visas available. And the 130,000 number as well is growing. because people are getting married, people are having kids. The 130,000 number actually increases quite dramatically. So it'll probably add another 10,000 people to that number. So yeah, it's a lot of people and not very many visas. So making everybody current doesn't make any logical sense. But anyway, yeah, you can do that, Yusuf. You will be asked to prove that you're going to return at the end. There'll be a question mark because of your DV, not selection, but if you filled out your DS-260. The selection doesn't change your immigrant, your the question mark over whether you've got immigrant intent. Not normally. I have known some consular officers ask that question: have you entered the lottery? Right? It's an odd question to ask because it's like the tax man asking you if you bought a lottery ticket and then trying to charge you extra tax, even though you didn't win the lottery, right? The money lottery. So it's an odd question to ask. I'm not sure they should even ask it, but I have known them ask that. You're right, Synthesia. I think we're probably not getting to 55k, and yes, we need to reserve some visas. But that just because that's what we need, that's what we want, doesn't mean that's what we'll get, right? Up to your opinion and experience over the years, how many interviews perhaps getting issued by the end of the fiscal year? In a normal year, I think we could see about 5, maybe 6,000 visas issued per month. So if we got 5 months, we might see 25,000 visas issued in a normal year. I think it's going to be hard to even get that number because not all the embassies will be open. So, it depends on the COVID crisis. It depends when they start. It's just too difficult to predict, really. Do you think KCC will be able to process the current DV cases? Again, how, literally, unless they start, I can't start predicting anything, right? And I don't really like predicting things anyway, but it's about when they start, right? The last verdict to issue visas while the proclamation was on. Why isn't that present for DV 2021? That's a good question. 5 federal judges have said, in 5 cases, the federal judges have said that this perspective that the government takes to not issue visas because the government, the president has banned entry. 5 federal judges have agreed that that's not lawful. It's not supported by law. However, you can see the reaction of some of the people that now are holding visas when those visas were issued on the basis that they couldn't be used while the proclamation is enforced, right? It creates a difficult position. You can understand the government's policy because people are frustrated. Why have I got a visa that I can't use, right? That's what people are saying. And some people call that unjust and morally wrong and everything else. And it's what we asked for, right? So, but why they continue to behave the way they're behaving when they've been told it's not a lawful way to behave is beyond me, and I think it needs correcting. But nevertheless, it does create difficulties, and we've seen the difficulties it creates, right? And misunderstanding, etc. I'm concerned that visas won't open, and yeah, absolutely, Irina, that you're right. Tim says he doesn't have any homosexual friend, but I do respect anyone I come across with. I bet you do. I bet you know more than 10 men. I bet you do know. You probably do know a homosexual. You just may not know they're homosexual, Tim. And the numbers, they speculate something like 1 in 10. I've got a friend of mine, actually, great family friend, and the little boy is 8 years old, and he's quite obviously gay. I mean, it's nothing sexual at his age, and it's not, his perfectly normal family, etc. He was just born that way. There's a question sometimes talked about whether it's nature or nurture. Do we make gay kids, right? No, of course we don't. That's bullshit. That's nature, right? So when people talk to me, I'm going to get religious for a minute. When people talk to me about, oh, it says in the Bible it's wrong to be gay, which is incorrect. That's an incorrect reading of what the Bible says. But nevertheless, some people try and take that position of, based on religious beliefs. Well, okay then. Why did God, if you believe in God, why did God make my friend's kid who's 8 years old? Why did he make him gay? To then only, put him in a position where he's some sort of evil monster for being gay. Okay, end of conversation, right? I mean, it's obviously stupid to apply a religious belief about that, and it's obviously daft to not understand that some kids are gay. Sorry, I mean, off topic completely, but the reality is some people are gay, and so what? Mind your own business, and I'm not saying that to you, Tim, but I mean to other people. Tim, I get the impression you live in the UK, I'm sure you. Maybe I'm incorrect, but you're used to seeing people with rights, but it's certainly not that way in all the world. There's some pretty horrible things going on. Skip your question. Any new update about DV Lottery 2022? No new update. There's no change in the dates of when they're going to announce the lottery winners for DV 2022. It'll still be in May. Same date that's described on the entry. So no new updates at all. I doubt DV 2022 is going to be much affected by all of this COVID stuff because, generally speaking, most of the COVID impact should be over by the end of this year, I would have thought. There will be some there'll be some problems in some countries because whilst the vaccination program is moving along in this country and in the UK and some other countries, there'll be some countries where there will continue to be a COVID crisis for longer than it should be because they're not doing vaccinations. So there could be some impact to DV 2022 of the COVID crisis, meaning local embassy closures and that sort of thing. But I don't expect it to be as bad as it has been for DV 2020 and DV 2021. Okay, so I'm just scanning through the questions here to see if there's anything. No feedback from President Biden that I know of, but the AILA are continuing to push that. So it's important to know AILA is the organization that works on behalf of all of the immigration lawyers in this country, and they have regular meetings with the government to discuss matters. There is a constant dialogue, so there are good, strong relationships with all of the lawyers and the government, and particularly AILA. They have people, they have contacts, they have conversations all the time. So, it's surprising that we can't get this thing resolved. But it would be a hell of a lot more helpful if Biden would actually set some sort of policy or direction or send some sort of word, cooperate, right? That would make it a lot easier. I think for 2020 and 21, they will only invite 55K. Okay. You mean for 2022? What do you mean? They always over. They always over-select. They always select more than 55,000 selectees because a lot of people don't continue with the process. Some years they over-select a little bit, like 80 or 90,000 selectees. That's okay generally. And other years they go way above 100,000. In DV 2014, it was 140,000. DV 2015, it was 125,000. In DV 2021, 132,000. And in 2014, 2015, 2018, there were cutoffs, right? We didn't go current, right? Because there were just too many people selected. And that would normally be the same position in DV 2021 because too many people have been selected. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up shortly, but I'm just looking. Okay, it's a good question, Heki. Biden has talked about raising the number of selectees from 55 to 80K. That's true. It's a suggestion. One of the things he's suggesting in his immigration bill is just a suggestion for conversation, for negotiation. It may get pulled out of the final immigration bill when that goes for votes, etc. But that whole process will take some time. So it certainly won't impact 2020, 2021, 2022, probably not 2023, to answer your question. So it might be, maybe we get it in place for 2024, maybe, if it ever becomes a reality. But it's interesting that he included it. I thought it signaled good intent towards the DV lottery program, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So we've got to see that good intent. For me, it's obvious Biden doesn't want to lift the ban due to the negative outcome it can cause for a minority but very loud number of people. NIE is a great compromise, a quiet way to enter without hurting Biden's political capital. It's a win-win. I agree with you, Julie. That would be the right way to move forward. And at this point, if they do one other thing, which I'll explain in a moment, they don't have to remove 10014 for DV lottery. If they would do one other thing. The embassies at the moment are sending emails and responses to people saying they're not scheduling cases because of PP 10014. The reality, I think, is more that they're not scheduling interviews because of the opening level. But they need to stop saying that they're not scheduling interviews because of PP 10014. That could be considered the problem. If it's really about the COVID closures, okay, tell us that. Don't point at 10014, particularly when, as we discussed just a moment ago, 5 federal judges have told them not to behave like that, right? So, but 10014 should be gone at the end of March, if not before, and therefore doesn't affect DV 2021, other than what the embassies are responding to people when they send the data saying, no, we can't give you an emergency appointment, or we can't give you an appointment because of PP 10014, right? So, other than that, right? But yes, I think I agree with you. I mean, the NIE is a good compromise. I wish they'd suggested that earlier. I was like, Irina, you asked earlier, I think any risk KCC won't have the time willingness to process me if I submit after March. No, generally speaking, March will be fine. April will be okay. May's pushing it, right? So don't go past, don't go past April. These days, you don't want to do that. But early April, should be fine. So I remember that you made a prediction on DV 2020 that was a good chance to win the DV 2021. Do you think the same for DV 2022? Yes, so that prediction was based on the reduced number of entries, that it was a good time to enter. That was what I was saying. That turned out to be correct. There were a lot less entries, something like 15 million entries rather than 22 million or 24 million. And so my prediction was accurate. And I think that will continue for DV 2022 as well. I think when we find out the numbers, we'll find out that there were not so many entries. And right now, with everything going on in the world, I think it's likely that people in October of last year were probably not thinking about entering a lottery to move to America. So I think we'll see quite low numbers. That just means that you had more chance of selection. Doesn't mean that they'll select more people. It just means that you actually had a better chance of selection. So what are the last question here? What's the probable decisions in the Enunciato case? I can't tell you what's probable. There are a number of things being asked in the Enunciato case. When a judge awards a case, and decides a case, they rarely give everything that's asked for, right? Every individual question is considered in its own right. So we may not get everything we ask for, but we'll have to wait and see what we get, if we get anything at all. We'll have to wait and see. I just want Seaborg to come out with his decision. He's had enough time now. I know he's busy, but he needs to come out with that decision now. Okay, everybody. I think I'll call it a day at that. Thanks for jumping on with me this morning. Hope that was useful. I answered a few questions there and gave some of my perspectives on life and homosexuality and political perspectives around the world. So talk about digression. But anyway, keep well, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. All right, bye-bye now.